Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the country's most successful leaders and how they elevate their business and their teams. Please welcome our host, Allison DePauli.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today for another episode of Raising the Bar, where we talk to CEOs who are raising the bar in their business, personal, professional, philanthropic lives. Today, it is my pleasure to have Shannon Badger, a friend, fellow woman business owner who owns her own CPA firm and has grown it quite substantially over the last few years in a rather interesting market and with a rather interesting background. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to visit with you.
I'm excited to have you here. Like all of our other episodes, we'll drop Shannon's bio contact information in the show notes, but I want to talk to you today about energy derivatives and owning your own accounting firm and the passion that you bring to it, because it is quite remarkable.
Oh, that'd be great. Just to give a little bit of history, my name is Shannon Badger, like Allison mentioned, and our firm was founded in 2014. We primarily provide outsourced accounting and fractional controller and CFO services to business owners. We also have a full service payroll team and also a tax planning and compliance team as well. And we have about 45 team members currently. We have an office in Austin, office in San Antonio, but we have team members all over the country and all over the world. So that's a little bit about us.
So you started in derivatives in the energy sector.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up there?
I did. So my husband and I are both Aggies. We went to A&M at College Station, and then after we graduated there, we went to Ernst Young in the Houston market. And so it's kind of a natural progression to start off with public accounting in Houston, and then most people, or a lot of people anyways, end up in energy just because of the sector is so big there in Houston. And so I was in Houston in the energy sector, primarily in derivatives and risk accounting. Just my first role outside of Ernst Young was a lot of contract review, technical memos, learning some of the more complex accounting concepts and how to apply those in a business. And so my role became over time, even when I left Kinder Morgan and went to Marathon, was kind of reviewing contracts essentially, and then trying to figure out how we would account for those, and then try to take a stance, write a memo, those kinds of things. So it's very much a technical accounting role. Did that for maybe 6 to 8 years. And then in 2014, I was pregnant with my third son and just was wanting a little bit more autonomy and flexibility in schedule. I had, a small side hustle helping some small consulting clients, business owners that maybe had questions or just wanted to review financials with me once a month, and just sort of was introduced organically through friends to the small business sector and was really enjoying that kind of work. And so it was June of 2014, I decided to leave my full-time job in the energy sector and just kind of went feet first into doing fractional controller work for small businesses. But at the time, I had probably 3 or 4 clients, and I was working very part-time while the kids were in Mother's Day out, and that's sort of how it started. But really, it was a need to have more flexibility and spend more time with my kids was a big motivator.
I think a lot of women start their businesses for that reason. And
then absolutely.
I like the flexibility. I know you like the flexibility, so they stay. But you've grown quite a firm, and I know a number of your clients, and they're in very diverse industries, and they all love you, by the way, and your team. They cannot speak highly enough about your team, and I think that in today's world, that's pretty remarkable.
Oh, thank you. We grew pretty quickly. It wasn't necessarily intentional, but I think when you first start a company, you're still trying to figure out, what you're really good at, what's the type of work that you love. Honestly, being a CPA, it's a pretty broad range of things that you can do or that you can learn over time. Also, like my historical knowledge from corporate wasn't necessarily transferable into the small business world. It's not quite as needed, and so I had a big learning curve. I had to learn all about sales tax, payroll tax, federal tax for businesses, things like that maybe I hadn't been as well versed in my career at the time. And so I definitely surrounded myself with lots of mentors, other CPA firm owners. I got plugged into a local women business group named NABO, and I found several CPA firm owners there that have really mentored me the last 8 years. So if I ever ran into speed bump questions, things like that. Like, we'd grab lunch and they'd help just kind of coach me and give me feedback. So that was really, really critical, because when you first start, I mean, you don't know very much, frankly. So you're kind of trying to figure out, you're building the plane on the way down a little bit.
And I want to give a shout out to NAWBO. I've been a long time NAWBO member, and I have always been so grateful for all of the women that really generously share knowledge, even competitors, and
Absolutely.
really go out of their way to help other women business owners. And you don't find that everywhere. I don't.
No, you don't. Absolutely. I remember first starting the business, it was kind of lonely, because in a corporate environment, you meet friends and colleagues that you have lunch with, that you spend time with, and then when you start and you're a solopreneur at the beginning, it's kind of lonely because you don't have that collaboration, you don't have other people to talk to. And so I remember actually Googling like women business group. And so I just showed up at a monthly lunch. I didn't know anybody, happened to sit next to Kim Ford, who also has a local CPA firm.
Yes.
And like, she's been one of my mentors and close friends, like really ever since. And so that's been just huge. It's been really huge. My husband also, so I left my role in, I guess it was June of 2014. My husband was an energy CFO for a small company. And then we had so much work, we didn't know what to do with. And so in January of 15, he actually left his CFO job and then joined. And so that was when it was really both of us full time in the business. And so that was extremely helpful. So we joked that he kind of sold, he wore kind of that sales hat. And then I wore more like the operations hat, like managing internal team and actually doing the client work. So that's kind of how we split things once he joined.
How was the transition from each of you having your own workplace to working together?
Good question. At the time, so when he left his role, we had 3 kids that were 3 and under. So I would not recommend doing it that way. And plus we had both went from 2 full-time jobs, kind of manager and up level, he had a CFO job, things like that, to literally starting a company from scratch. And so there was a lot of squeeze just in terms of sleep, energy, finances, I mean, pretty much anything. So it was a little bit of a pressure cooker, to be honest, for probably about a year while we were just getting things going. And we were fortunate to get a few contracts for like kind of fractional COO, CFO type work that really helped us get the business going, because it gave us, that billable work, kind of that baseline, so we could pay our bills while we were trying to expand and hire a team. But that first year, I mean, it was a little bit crazy, honestly. So I don't know that I would, recommend doing it that way. I'd probably have a little bit more of a plan than we did. We kind of joke, we had some savings and we got like a $50,000 loan from Wells Fargo. We just like went for it. And then we figured we could always just get jobs if we needed to. But like I said, I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but it's a funny story now looking back. We're like, what were we thinking? Like, we're crazy. But it was fun.
I remember I met you right around that time, the very first time. I don't know that you would remember that, and I remember you talking about how crazy it was. But you seemed so happy at the time. Like it made you happy that what you were doing, which is always lovely to see.
Well, business ownership is weird because it's extremely stressful. It's got some downsides, but I think I was so happy because I had just like the ultimate freedom to like make my life whatever I wanted it to be. So I could make my own schedule. I could spend time with my kids. I could pick what clients I wanted to work with. I could, and so yes, there's times where it's hard because, in leadership, that's where you get into like having to define roles and hold people accountable and boundaries and all those fun things, which are really hard. But I was experiencing like true freedom in my professional, career for the first time. And so I think it was a really amazing feeling. So yeah, I was giddy. And I remember I could like pick my kids up at 2 and I could take them to the park and then I could work more when I get home. And it was just really experiencing freedom that I never had really had.
Let's talk a little bit about leading and holding people accountable, because I think managing a team is one thing, but leading a team and leading them and holding them accountable and growing everybody is a different experience, and often just learned on the fly. How do you manage that with a remote workforce?
We have tried to implement some tools. To be honest, it's an area that we're still learning ourselves. I think that's one thing as a business owner is, our personal belief, my husband and I, is that it's a stewardship and a privilege really to be supervising or leading others. And so we take it very seriously, and our hearts are really to create an environment where people want to be here and they feel like they're doing meaningful work, that they're spending time with people that they enjoy being around, and that they know that they're truly like cared for. We care about them, we care about their families, we care about their professional development, those kinds of things. And so there's kind of this tension between creating a high performing work culture where people know what success looks like and they know what's expected of them, and then also like loving people really hard. And so, but I think it's a worthwhile tension for business owners to try to walk, because it is a privilege to be an owner, and it is a privilege to have people that, it's very humbling. Like when people would be willing to come and work with us sometimes. I remember when we first started hiring, especially more experienced accountants, I felt almost inadequate to be leading some of these amazing people that are here. But I think that it really is a privilege. But as far as like remote environment, I think implementing a structure is really critical. And so it goes into like your meeting rhythms, your reporting, your scorecards, and your cadence, where everybody's beating to kind of the same drum. We've implemented a system called EOS, which stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yep.
It's based on a book called Traction by Gino Wickman, but we've been running on that for about 2 years now. And I think that really has helped create clarity around vision, defining success, who's doing what, and those kinds of things. We still have like our challenges, like we haven't fully, I don't know that we'll ever like arrive, right? But it really has been critical with us implementing just that structure.
And are you using EOS on your own, or do you have an implementer to help you?
We have an implementer. We actually self-implemented and did not have an implementer for our first year. And then we went ahead and engaged an implementer. And I think it's been really critical, because especially in like your leadership team level, having that implementer really helps create like transparent dialogue, discussion. Sometimes as the owner, you can be the one driving a meeting. You don't even realize you're doing it because you have all these ideas, and I get really excitable, and I also think out loud. So sometimes it's like, it's hard to create space for other people to have feedback and ideas and other things. And so I think having a facilitator has really helped make sure that we're getting other voices at the table, we're getting feedback, we're getting other thoughts and things like that. So I would highly recommend engaging a professional to help facilitate that.
We work with a lot of companies that have engaged in EOS on some level, and we found that the ones that have an implementer make progress consistently. They may not be, sprinting, but they're making progress consistently, and people are engaged in the process, and teams are growing better, and everything is more stable and just moves forward every month. I was amazed to see the difference.
Absolutely.
And that's small companies, big companies, doesn't matter. Yes. I mean, if you're 3 people, then maybe you don't need an EOS implementer. But once you get to be 5, 8, 10, I've seen it be incredibly effective in helping navigate the speed bumps of growth, because you can see them coming.
Absolutely. Yes. You can predict them. You get better at predicting. And then you also get better at collaborating around what the real issues are and then priorities each quarter. So whereas me as the owner, I might be like, oh, like, I think, I don't know, training and development, for example, I think that's the priority. And then I might have my operations people might be like, that's not the biggest pain point right now. And so it really helps create like a singular voice in the org around what are like the really key things we're working on right now, and bring all those perspectives in. I recommend to clients, once you have more than one level of management, it's really time to look at doing something like that. So
yes,
if everyone's still kind of directly reporting to the owner, you probably don't need it. But once you start going that next level, and then maybe one more level, it's like when you have multi-levels of management, it's really critical, I think.
How did you feel about acquiring or creating second levels of management? Because that's really when businesses start to stabilize and like, oh, I have a business.
Yeah. It was mixed emotions. It was really hard to like let go at first, because all those clients, I had been managing them directly myself for so long, and I'm a very relational person. So I'm a connector by nature. And so relationships for me are really important. And so it's very hard to transfer relationships where maybe I'm not spending as much time with that client now, and basically like giving that relationship, to someone else to manage. So at first it was really hard. And then the other piece of that is we didn't have a lot of the internal, I would say, reporting and technology in place we needed to where I would have visibility. So what it felt like was almost like a trust fall, where you're just like, well, I'm giving you this client and I hope that you're taking great care of them, but I don't have really adequate technology or systems to see like, how are they doing? Where are the notes? Where are we at with the client? Those kinds of things. And so in hindsight, if I was doing it all over again, is I would have spent more time building that infrastructure on the front end, because what happened was I kind of released some of the control. And then after the fact was trying to go back in and put in like reporting mechanisms and things to increase visibility. It's kind of hard to go backwards.
Yes. We did that when one of the very first things that we did was implement some of those things, and our systems are probably still a little bit too big for what we are, but we all know where we are in any given project, and that is a much better peace of mind.
Yes. Well, and implementing, so let's say you're starting to go to that next level and you're going, let's say from 5 people to 10 people. If you get that baseline there, is so much easier than like what we did, where we were kind of moving fast and breaking things, which is a little bit my personality, unfortunately, for everyone else. But we kind of grew really quick. And then all of a sudden we had like 25 people and we were like, oh, we don't have a workflow system. Oh, we don't have a good reporting system. And then we basically had to like go backwards and like rebuild it. So now you're trying to, move 20, 30 team members onto a new technology, when it could have been done, several years ago. But I think that too, some of that, unfortunately for any business, I think it kind of becomes what the owner or founder's strengths or weaknesses is. You'll see it in the business. And so I think it's really critical. It kind of goes to hiring people that are good at what you're not good at. Yes. Because systems and processes is not what I'm good at. And so now we have some really amazing people internally that think that way. So I feel like they're like right in my blind spot, which is awesome, because that's where they need to be.
Yes.
So
I have a friend who's the chief operating officer at a rather large company. And she says, I'm really great at creating, systems and processes. Just don't ask me to follow them. Yes. I'm much the same way. And I know you are too. So you definitely, you have to have somebody that can fill in those blind spots. And I think a lot of organizations seem to want to replicate the owner. And I think you don't get good growth that way.
I would agree with that. And I think I, have made that mistake before. What I had found is in interviews, for example, I tend to value characteristic traits that maybe that I have, like being outgoing or talkative, or presenting well in meetings, or whatever might be my strengths. But what I need to be looking for is like, how do you understand systems? Like your, other things, like to make us more well-rounded. And I had realized at one point that I was almost had like a bias in that area. And so we've started using more, personality tools and other things to try to calibrate that. And then also bringing other people into that interview process, because, some of our most amazing people have been like the opposite of me. And that's good, because when you put it together, it's great. And so I think just using other tools, like personality assessments and whatnot, just to make sure you have a well-rounded organization is really important. And then also creating space for other people to interject or have thoughts and opinions.
Where do you see taking your firm next? Because you're quite engaged in your subject. You have very specific opinions about how businesses should run, and people just seem to flock to you.
We really want to stay as we call it a relationship firm. And so our vision really has been, no more than 200 clients and, no more than 65 team members. And so that's been kind of our, long-term vision. I can't say that, wouldn't change in the future. But I think part of the joy for me every day is who I work with, and like knowing the team and knowing their families and what they're up to and all those kinds of things. And so I don't know that I'd ever want to grow past that, because then I feel like I would have just created myself a job in a way. And so I think just having kind of like that small relationship boutique feel is really what we're wanting to stay with. Where I see us growing towards is more continuing to focus on the specific industries that we serve. So we have a really strong nonprofit accounting group, and so nonprofit, construction, government contractors, and energy. We have quite a bit of professional services and real estate as well. But we're going to be trying to basically expand, I think, our consulting and reporting around those specific niches, so we can really carve out as being, industry experts in a few things versus being a generalist firm. So we're moving in that direction and trying to develop training and development around the industries we want to be serving long term. But it's so hard, because you'll meet a client that you love that might be outside of your current core focus. But honestly, if it's a business owner that we love working with and they need the services we have, we're not in a place right now where we're like saying no to that, but we are definitely trying to become kind of experts in a few.
How did you arrive at those industries?
Our sweet spot, what we found, are really industries that have a little bit more complex reporting. So it's businesses that have third-party reporting, like DCAA, grants, federal state grants, maybe a bonding company, external audit, things of that nature. And so we found that clients that want to pay for fractional controller service, what we provide, and the fees that we charge, it's like if they have some kind of external pain point that they're needing to solve, is really, the types of clients that come to us. So we do some like basic bookkeeping, but that's not really the clients that come. They come to us because they have, a grant where they need to track, time and materials, or they have, just specific reporting needs that they want. And so they're needing that controller presence. So that's why we've kind of landed on those, because nonprofit, construction, energy, and government contractors all have very similar job costing, labor allocations, third-party reporting requirements that they need to meet. So
I didn't realize that. Thank you for teaching me something new.
Yeah, it's like pretty much anybody that has really like labor allocations, job costing, and time and billing. That's they need timekeeping and billing for time, or costing at a very like granular level. That's really our sweet spot.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I learned a little more than I thought I would. And I always enjoy talking to you. For those of you that are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review wherever you get your or you're listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Have a terrific rest of your day.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Raising the Bar is powered by Altique Consulting, the country's leading independent expert in healthcare cost containment. Astute employers know there's a better way to offer health insurance, and we help them achieve it.